Hi guys, my name's Ann Fetters, and I just wanted to pop on and share a little bit with you about 5-in-1 and diabetes type 2. If you have type 1 diabetes, please see your coach. There's a different plan for you. Just know I am not a doctor. I'm just going to share with you my personal experience and what I've found, what I've learned through reading in the Habits of Health. It's 2.7. Starts about page 288. Dr. A talks a lot about insulin and blood sugar and it can explain this way better than I can. My personal story is that I was a gestational diabetic 7 times. I was also insulin dependent all 7 of those times. So that ups your chances for being a regular diabetic. And sure enough, in 2017, I went to the doctor not feeling well, found out that I was indeed a diabetic. My A1C was 10.9. I tried diet and oral medication. That didn't work. I wasn't really trying diet if I'm honest. And then I went to an endocrinologist. I ended up ultimately on 3 short-acting shots, a long-acting shot, 2 different oral medications, and a weekly shot to control my diabetes. Still, with all of that, they were thrilled when my numbers were below like 6.7, 6.5. They'd be like, "Oh, you're doing so good." But I could see on that chart that I wasn't in the normal range. Um, I firmly believed in the 3 square meals a day, right? We've been taught that our whole lives, 3 square meals a day. Turns out that those 3 square meals a day were hurting me. I was driving my sugar up and then I was bottoming out. So the day I started program and started eating 6 times a day, which my doctor had just said to me, my endocrinologist, "Do you eat 6 times a day?" And I was like, "No, that's crazy. I don't do that." Literally the appointment before I started program. So I started that 6 time fueling a day and it changed everything. So I went from these big peaks and valleys to nice, gentle rolling hills with my insulin. I could tell because I wore a continuous glucose monitoring device. I had to wear that because of the insulin. And I could see this change in my sugar. All of a sudden, my sugars were like staying at like 100, 110. They weren't that low when I was fasting before. So that was amazing. I was so excited. So over the course of 14 months, I went from that 265 pounds I was right before I started program to 140 pounds. I got rid of all those medications. I lowered my A1C to 5.1. I lowered my cholesterol dramatically. My endocrinologist released me from her care, told me that I could just go back to seeing my general practitioner. My preventative cardiologist, he put a gold star on my paperwork and told me that I only needed to come back once a year, that we needed to make room for people who really needed to see him. I mean, y'all, you can't argue with results, right? I feel like that was pretty good results. So, what I learned as I have been studying all this is that we really need to make sure we're doing that 2.5 to 3 hour fueling because that really just keeps on those nice, gentle, rolling hills instead of those big peaks and valleys. Um, if you want to see more about that, read in that 2.7 from Dr. A. High insulin levels can cause a lot of inflammation. I had that. I thought that the not sleeping well and the headaches and the unending hunger and the crazy cravings were signs that I needed to eat more, that my body was telling me to eat more. It was not what my body was telling me. My body was telling me, "You have a lot of inflammation and you're sick. Change something." I'm so glad I did change something. So, what I found out is that the CDC is saying that 38.4 million Americans are diabetic. 8.7 of those are walking around undiagnosed, like I was in 2017. Another 97.6 million are pre diabetic. I was one of those numbers. I'm so glad I'm not one of those numbers anymore. I was able to reverse this diagnosis and this life I lived through changing the quality and quantity of the fuel that I was putting in my mouth. I think that that is astounding. And I thank Dr. A for coming up with this so that we can change our lives. I know that I'm forever grateful.